The moment stretched, suspended between past and present, and the air crackled with an unspoken tension. I could hardly breathe, the familiarity of her gaze striking fear deep within my chest. Before I could react, she turned abruptly, retreating into the shadows. I hesitated, torn between instinct and intrigue. "Wait!" I called out, my voice cracking with urgency. But the figure vanished like a mirage, swallowed by the night. In that instant, the dazzling warmth of the saloon faded. I was left standing alone, the dusty streets suddenly feeling colder, the laughter much more distant, that I felt a tugging in my heart, a longing mixed with confusion. Was it really her? Memories rushed in, entwined with emotions I thought I had buried. I could still hear her laughter, a beautiful sound so distinct that it had echoed in my dreams. But I had left that life behind. I had to focus on the future now. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself. The thought of returning to my car was just as daunting as confronting that fleeting figure. Instead, I stepped tentatively toward the saloon's entrance, the atmosphere buzzing just beyond its doors. As I pushed through the heavy wooden door, a wave of warmth embraced melodic music, voices mixing into a tapestry of life. The saloon was filled with rugged men and women, sharing stories and dreams. A bartender polished glasses behind a counter that had seen better days. I hesitated at first, watching the vibrant scene unfold. Then, a pair of kind eyes met mine. An elderly man, weathered by time but emanating wisdom, beckoned me over. "First time in Colter?" he asked, his voice a gravelly whisper filled with familiarity, as if he had seen many weary souls step through those doors seeking something. "Yes," I replied, unsure of how much to share. Something in his demeanor calmed my racing heart. Hoping to start anew. But feeling a little lost. That he nodded knowingly. "You're not alone in that. This town has a way of bringing out the wanderers. Just be careful how far you wander." He passed me a drink, an amber liquid that glimmered like hope. "A little whiskey for courage. It'll help." That I smiled faintly, lifting the glass to my lips. The warmth spread through me, igniting a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in ages. "Thank you," I whispered, grateful for this small moment of kindness. As I sipped, the sounds around me faded, replaced by the thundering of my heart. I glanced toward the corner of the room where a group of musicians began to play. The lively rhythm engulfed me, stirring something deep within. Perhaps this was the fresh start I had longed for, a moment to embrace joy, even as shadows lingered on the periphery. But just as I began to relax, the front door swung open again, the rustic bell clanging as a gust of wind swept in. My heart sank as I recognized the figure that stepped inside. It was her, the woman from the shadows. This time, the shawl slipped slightly, revealing a fragment of her face, and my breath caught in my throat. She scanned the room, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that sent a ripple of anxiety coursing through me. There was something desperate in her gaze, a plea hiding beneath the surface. The crowd around me became a cacophony of murmurs and laughter, as I stood frozen, rooted in place by both fear and curiosity. What was she doing here? Did she know I had seen her? Before I could unravel the tangled threads of my thoughts, she began to move toward me, weaving through the throng of bodies. In that moment, a part of me wanted to turn and run, to escape the sense of impending confrontation. But another part, perhaps the braver side that my mother had nurtured, stood firm. I needed answers, and deep down, I felt that our paths had crossed for a reason. As her presence loomed closer, the cacophony faded into silence. The world came down to just the two of us, our voices yet unspoken but charged with years of history. The moment felt electric, and suddenly, everything was on the line. I needed to know why she had been in Colter, and what thread of my past she had woven back into my future. The whisper of uncertainty hovered between us, growing heavier with each passing second. Would this be the moment I finally uncovered the truth, or the moment that shattered everything I had fought to build? The answer lingered just out of reach as she stood before me, her eyes reflecting 1,000 unsaid words. The room felt unbearably small as she stood before me, the air charged with a tension that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. I could hardly breathe, each inhale heavy with memories I thought I had buried deep. Her presence reignited 1,000 questions, a compulsion to understand everything I had overlooked. "Why did you run?" I blurted out, my voice barely a whisper, fearing that speaking any louder would shatter the fragile intimacy of the moment. For a fleeting moment, her eyes softened, revealing a vulnerability that pierced through my anxiety. But just as quickly, they clouded over, enshrouded in secrets I had no means to decipher. Her lips parted, but no words came forth. Instead, she glanced around, as if searching for an escape. Suddenly, the cheerful sounds of the saloon returned with a vengeance, the laughter and music filling the air again, but I felt trapped in a bubble of silence between us. The elderly man who had welcomed me earlier sat nearby, observing with a mixture of concern and curiosity. I stole a glance at him, hoping for an inkling of advice, but all he offered was a nod of encouragement, as if to say, "This is your fight." The tension in her shoulders seemed to unravel slightly, and she took a step closer, a cautious movement that suggested a desire to connect despite the obvious fear lingering on the edge. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said at last, her voice a trembling echo of the familiarity that once sang between us. "Then why did you come?" I pressed, feeling the gears of dialogue turning in my favor, as if the thread of our shared past spun itself toward a truth waiting to be uncovered. Before she could answer, a raucous laugh erupted from a nearby table, pulling her gaze away from me. I followed her eyes to a group of boisterous townsfolk celebrating a recent cattle drive. The noise seemed to mock the gravity of our moment, sending a ripple of annoyance through me. "Damn it," I muttered under my breath, fighting the frustration swirling inside. I was yearning for clarity in a room filled with chaos, aching for a bridge over the chasm of uncertainty between us. But she remained rooted, flickering like a candle caught in a tempest. "I came back because..." Her words trailed off, and I saw in her eyes a flash of something that resembled fear, a reflection of my own. I felt the weight of her silence, the enormity of what we were both grappling with. "Because what?" I asked, my voice edged with desperation. "You left without a word." I thought the door swung open again, and a tall figure entered, breaking the moment's spell. Instinctively, I turned, my heart dropping as a wave of dread washed over me. The newcomer's face was familiar too. It was Henry, a figure from my past, a man whose presence was often sour, marked by broken deals and fading trust. "What are you doing here?" I bit out, my eyes narrowing as I considered the implications of his appearance. Henry strode across the saloon, his eyes scanning the room almost predatory. "I'm looking for you," he replied, a smirk twisting his lips. Panic ripped through me. There was no way he could know about her presence, could he? I wanted to turn back to her, to see her face, but I knew that if she saw the fear that Henry's gaze brought, it might change everything. But all I could muster was, "You shouldn't be here, Henry. This isn't your place." That he chuckled darkly, leaning casually against the bar. "Oh, but I think it is. You see, I didn't come all this way to settle old scores. I came for something much more valuable." He fixed his gaze on her, an unsettling glimmer sparking behind his eyes. My heart raced as I turned back to the woman before me, whose expression mirrored my own confusion and alarm. Whatever history I had anticipated unearthing was suddenly overshadowed by a new threat, one I had no idea how to confront. Henry stepped forward, closing the distance, and I felt my instincts flare with protective urgency. "Stay away from her," I warned, my voice low and fierce. But Henry simply laughed, the sound grating against the growing tension in the saloon. "You have no idea what you're up against, my friend. But you will soon enough." Her eyes darted between us, widening in apprehension, and I could read the fear etched across her face. In that instant, something shifted, a fragile balance tipping toward chaos as the saloon's joyful energy morphed into a backdrop of impending confrontation. As the music played on, I felt the weight of two lives intertwining, a past I couldn't escape and a future that now teetered precariously on the edge of my choices. There was no simple answer to the questions we were both screaming inside, and the hint of danger loomed larger. But all I knew was that I had to protect her at all costs. "Let's go," I whispered urgently, reaching out toward her, my heart pounding against the onrush of events, sensing that what lay ahead could change everything. But as I moved, a sudden shout from Henry's direction caught my attention, and my blood ran cold. "Don't walk away now. You have something that belongs to me, and I intend to take it back." The revelation clawed at my insides, locking me in place. What had I dragged back into my life? And how much was I willing to lose to preserve the fragile hope of what could still be? I could feel the world around us narrowing into a pinprick, the sounds of the saloon fading into a distant hum as my mind spun. Henry's words wrapped around me like a vice, squeezing the air from my lungs. Instinctively, my gaze flickered to her, searching for understanding, a glimmer of hope in her eyes that this was all some horrid misunderstanding. But the fear in her expression only mirrored my own, and I felt the walls around us tightening, forcing the unspoken between us to rear its ugly head. "Don't listen to him," I said, my voice becoming a husk, edged with urgency. "He's nothing. Just empty threats." My heart raced as I stepped closer to her, needing her to feel the sincerity of my words, to know that I was willing to stand between her and the dark shadows of our past. But Henry laughed, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through the air like a taunt. "Nothing? Oh, I assure you, I am very much something. And you, my friend, are tangled in something far beyond your understanding." He glanced at her, an unsettling intensity drifting into his gaze. "Don't you see? You're just a pawn in this game." That I could see panic flutter across her face, and my anger flared anew, igniting a protective flame deep within me. I reached for her hand, grounding us both in the midst of the chaos that Henry threatened to unleash. "Stay with me," I urged, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine, a fleeting reminder of the connection we shared before this storm descended. As if sensing the shift in the atmosphere, the elderly man I had noticed earlier began to rise from his chair, eyes narrowed in quiet concern. He was just a stranger, but there was something undeniably reassuring in his presence, a reminder that kindness even existed amid tumultuous moments. "Gentlemen, you might want to take this outside," the man said, his voice steady as a rock, somehow commanding the attention of the surrounding crowd, momentarily halting the celebration. "Mind your business, old man," Henry snapped, but there was a slight tremor in his confidence, as if the collective gaze of the saloon was pricking at the edges of his bravado. "Maybe you should heed his advice, Henry," I offered, seizing on the small chance to deflect him. "You're not welcome here. You're only here to stir trouble, and we won't allow it." For a heartbeat, it felt as if I had restored some measure of peace, but the way Henry's gaze flickered back to her made my stomach twist. What was it that he saw in her, something I still struggled to comprehend myself? To my horror, Henry smiled darkly. "Ah, but trouble is just the beginning. You should know by now, the more you resist, the more I will dig. There are things she hasn't told you, things that will turn your world upside down." That I clenched my jaw, unwilling to let him in. "I stand by her, no matter what banner you wave. She deserves the truth, not your manipulations." She squeezed my hand, a silent show of defiance, her eyes fluttering from my face to Henry's, her conflict amplifying with every breath we shared. It was a reminder that we were all navigating the turbulent waters of our past mistakes. "Maybe there are secrets," she spoke finally, her voice soft yet steady, cutting through the dense tension. "But they are mine to share, not his." Henry favored her with a condescending look. "You really think you're in control of this? The stakes are too high. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Before I could gather a response, the elderly man stepped forward, the soft lines on his weathered face conveying both warmth and authority. "What you're dealing with isn't merely what you think it is. The truth, buried as it may be, always finds a way to surface." The air felt charged, the fragile silence a jungle of possibilities. I caught a flicker of emotion in her eyes. Uncertainty washed over a sea of apprehension. Did she know something more? I wanted to ask, to dig deeper and unravel the tangled threads binding her to Henry, but every second felt precious, dangerously close to breaking. "Let's go," I urged her again, pulling her against me, desperate to shield her from whatever dark designs Henry had conjured up in that twisted mind of his. "This isn't over, not by a long shot." With quickened hearts, we stepped back, but Henry stepped forward, grief twisting into an expression I couldn't quite decipher. You may think you're protecting her, but heed my warning. Sometimes the knights in shining armor are only wearing golden chains. His words trailed behind us like a haunting echo as we pushed through the crowd, the laughter and music dimming into an ominous backdrop, the safety of the outside air just a few breaths away. But as we reached the door, I felt her hand stiffen in mine, her breath catching sharply in her throat. "Wait," she gasped, pulling me back. "Before we go out there I need to tell you something. It's about Henry, and why I left." For a split second, the world narrowed again, my heart pounding as a sense of panic collided with anticipation. Was I ready to face whatever truth she was about to reveal, and could I handle the unraveling of our fragile connection? Something monumental hung in the air, waiting to shift everything once more. The door of the saloon creaked ominously as I turned back to her, the cacophony of voices and laughter fading into a muted hum behind us. Her eyes, a tempest of fear and determination, held mine as if she could read the frantic beat of my heart. I instinctively tightened my grip, unwilling to let go, as if simply holding her could shield us from the oncoming storm. "What is it?" I asked, barely able to contain the tremor in my voice. "You can tell me anything. Whatever it is, well, face it together." Tears glistened in her eyes, and I cringed at the sight. She searched for words, her breath hitching as she wrestled with the agony of an unspoken truth. Time seemed to stretch, the world outside continuing its chaotic rhythm while we hovered in this fragile moment, teetering on the edge of revelation. "Henry, he's not just a threat," she managed to say, her voice wavering. "He's tied to my past in ways I can't explain right now, dark ways that I thought I had escaped." That I felt my heart drop, an uneasy sensation unfurling in my chest. "What do you mean?" I could barely form the words, the anxiety clawing at me. The stakes seemed to rise higher, with every breath growing heavier, as if the weight of her secrets could shatter the tenuous bond we shared. "That he was part of a life I wanted to forget, one filled with choices I regret," she replied, each word punctuated by the quiver of her lips. "I left him behind for a reason, one that I thought was safe until now. My name, my past, it's all tangled in his web." Before she could finish, the saloon door swung open with a force that rattled the hinges, and our attention snapped to the figure blocking the entrance. A cold draft swept in, snatching the warmth of connection from our moment. Henry stood silhouetted against the light, a predator at the threshold, and dread washed over me in waves. "Still elaborating on secrets, I see," he taunted, his lips curling in a predatory smile. "Did you really think you could escape me so easily?" My body instinctively tensed, protective instincts flaring brightly. "You need to leave her alone, Henry. This is between us now. But you misunderstand," he replied, stepping forward, drawing the gaze of the surrounding patrons once more. The bar's atmosphere shifted from intrigue to awful anticipation. It felt as if we were all caught in a grand play, the tension buzzing palpably in the air. "It's never just about the two of you. There are more strings to this violin, my dear friend. Strings you know nothing about." "Stop it!" she shouted, her voice rising above the simmering tension, a mixture of defiance and fear that rendered me breathless. "You have no power over me anymore, Henry. I won't be your puppet." Henry chuckled, the sound sending a chill down my spine. "A puppet? No, but perhaps a pawn. You can't deny the dangers lurking in your past. And while you brandish your newfound courage, let's not forget the family ties that bind you to me." "Family ties?" The realization hit like a thunderclap, igniting the air with an electric charge of confusion and dread. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, torn between the need for clarity and the grip of mounting terror. "I am simply stating a fact," Henry replied coolly, eyes glinting as he relished the distortion of reality he was spinning. "The blood that runs through your veins, sweet girl, is identical to mine. Whether you like it or not, you belong to me, and those you love are mere collateral." The words floated in the air, heavy with implications. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the noise surrounding us. Reckoning crashed upon me as I glanced back at her, confusion morphing into disbelief. "What is he saying?" Her face paled, and the air grew thick with an unshakable silence, the weight of what Henry had just revealed pressing down like a dark cloud over our fragile entanglement. She opened her mouth, yet no sound emerged, horror and uncertainty painted vividly across her features. "Let's go," I whispered, an urgent plea surfacing from deep within, desperation flooding my voice. It felt apparent, we had to escape. We had to regroup, find solace in the chaos crashing around us. But I felt the tremble in her hand that betrayed a deeper conflict, and I knew we were on the cusp of something momentous. "Before you go," she began again, her determination shifting against the tide of uncertainty, "there's a truth about my family that I've kept buried. If I don't tell you now, I might lose everything that I swallowed hard, fearing the depths to which this revelation might plunge us, but drawn, nonetheless, into her pain and bravery." I needed to hear her truth. We were bound in this moment, living shadows of the secrets threatening to converge, but before she could find the strength to continue, the clamor of the saloon erupted around us, laughter and anger intertwining like a tempest, oblivious to the storm within our hearts. Just then, the elderly man from before caught my eye, nodding faintly as if urging us to embrace the truth amidst the turmoil. "Tell me," I urged, squeezing her hand tighter, my mind racing toward the implications of what Henry had just revealed, an unseen web weaving itself tighter around us, and then, just as her lips parted, a loud crash resonated from inside the saloon, a shattered glass, the eruption of chaos. I recognized the sound, as if fate itself orchestrated a deliberate unraveling, yanking us back into a reality that felt increasingly surreal. Her eyes widened, fear splintering through her resolve. A cold wash of dread flooded through me as I registered the panic erupting around us. In that instant, everything shifted, all the truths and lies had become indistinguishable. We were on the breaking point, caught between an explosion of past dangers and the haunting revelation yet to be spoken. "Stay close," I urged, a whisper of resolve amid the storm. I locked eyes with her, determined not to let anything tear us apart now. And as chaos unfurled around us, I couldn't shake the growing sense that the real battle was still to come, ready to breach the fragile sanctuary we had clung to, and there it lingered, the chilling understanding. The moment we stepped through that door, we sealed our fates in a tempest swirling just outside the threshold. The man loomed before us like a storm cloud, crackling with unseen energy, and my instincts screamed at me to run. But as I stood rooted, entrapped by the gravity of his presence, I could feel her trembling beside me. In that fleeting moment, I became painfully aware of the fragility of her resolve. The grin on the man's face widened, revealing the unhinged excitement of someone who had, at long last, cornered his prey. "You thought you could run?" he taunted, his voice smooth as silk but laced with venom. "Henry's not the only one who knows where to find you, sweetheart." Her breath hitched, panic flooding her eyes. I felt the heat of anger boiling within me but fought to maintain a grip on the situation. "Who are you?" I demanded, stepping slightly in front of her, shielding her from the threat that stood in the night like a harbinger of doom. "Just a friend of the family," he said, thick with sarcasm. "Let's say I'm here to collect what was promised." "What do you want with her?" I growled, gripping her hand tight to reassure her. "Oh, don't play the gallant hero just yet," he replied, a mocking glance darting between us. "She's still a part of a game far bigger than your little romance. You really think love can save her from her blood? It's cute, really." That's when I caught a glimpse of her, terror etched across her delicate features, and I felt hopelessness clawing at my resolve. "We don't have to play this out, you know," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can walk away." That he chuckled, the sound eerily devoid of warmth. "Walk away? And let Henry have his fun?" "No, no. Family matters can't be brushed under the rug that easily. I've cut ties with them. I want nothing to do with that life," she shouted, her voice breaking as anger surged through her, a defiant spark against the darkness looming before us. "Oh, sweet girl," he mocked, taking a step closer. "Denial doesn't change the blood that runs in your veins. You can't outrun this, and neither can he." It felt as though the air had thickened, the weight of his words suffocating. The shadows swirled ominously in the street behind him, and I could sense the truth lurking there, taking shape. We were trapped, but I wasn't about to surrender without a fight. "Maybe you don't understand," I said slowly, forcing clarity through the storm raging in my chest. "Love is a different kind of weapon. You underestimate the strength that comes from choosing your own path." His eyes flashed with a dangerous light, anger sparking between us like a lightning bolt. "You think you're strong? You're just a distraction, an escape she's clinging to while the real storm is brewing. Henry knows it, and I'm here to ensure she remembers." What he said stung, more than I liked to admit. But there, amidst the palpable tension, I felt her grip tighten around my hand. There was defiance in her eyes, a flicker of rebellion against the shadows that had clouded her past for too long. "Let's go," she urged, her voice steadier now. "We can't stay here, not with him." I nodded, still bracing against the tension, keeping her close as we began to edge backward down the quiet street, but the man stepped forward, blocking our path. "Oh, I don't think you see the risks you're taking," he sneered, expression morphing into something sinister. "There's a price for running away, and Henry will collect. He always does." And just as I thought we might evade the storm, a high-pitched whimper cut through the night, as if the wind itself was warning us. My eyes sharpened, searching the shadows for the source. "Stay close," I yelled, pulling her protectively by the arm as we both scanned the darkness that threatened to envelop us. The man's focused gaze suddenly shifted, a glint of alarm sparking in his eyes. "What's that?" But before either of us could react, a loud crash erupted from behind him, sending him stumbling forward. My heart raced as I recognized the sound. A window in the saloon exploded, leaving shards glinting under the moonlight, a panic-stricken woman emerging through the broken glass, eyes wide, mouth screaming. "Help! Please, someone help me!" she cried, collapsing on the dirt ground, her hands pleading towards us. Within moments, chaos erupted as the patrons from the saloon poured out, throwing desperate glances back inside. My heart sank as I realized, this wasn't just about Henry or her demons. It was a war echoing from the shadows of their past, threatening to swallow this town whole. "Get inside!" I shouted, urgency propelling my words. I grabbed her hand tightly, dragging her towards the woman who was now desperately trying to pull herself off the ground. But even in my haste, the man had regained his composure and swiftly cut our path yet again, a predator ready to strike. "Run!" I urged her, my voice hoarse with fear as she hesitated, torn between helping the woman and escaping this nightmare. "Please! I think it's Henry. He's here!" the woman wailed, pleading. "They're looking for me." Panic flooded my senses as the threads of her torment rushed back in. Henry was using this chaos to tighten his grip, to ensnare us all. Fists clenched, I felt my heart fracture, knowing we were now at the center of a storm too massive to contain. Her past, Henry, the Chowsit was all crashing together, and there might be no way to escape. No. She yelled suddenly, pushing me back. Her face was set, eyes blazing with renewed resolve. "I won't run. Not again." With that, she released my hand and sprinted to the woman on the ground, panic building within me as I scanned the shadows for any sign of their impending doom. I knew I had to protect her, but it felt as if the horizon was shifting, the edges of our world slowly crumbling away. The darkness enveloped us, a chilling sensation creeping underneath my skin as I watched her strong spirit clash against a torrent of past troubles. In that moment, I realized, we were not simply racing against Henry, we were running towards a reckoning. And as I stepped forward, rejoining her side, the echoes of her past began to unfurl like a wildfire, a force neither of us could extinguish. Together, we stood on the brink, but the heart-wrenching truth weighed heavily, and as I felt a shiver race down my spine, I understood, our only hope for escape lay within each other, yet an undeniable darkness loomed, swallowing our chance of a future whole. The flickering lights of the saloon danced like restless spirits in the chaos surrounding us. Shouting echoed through the narrow streets, mingling with the clattering of boots against the cobblestones. I glanced at her, kneeling beside the woman whose cries were like a beacon, drawing a desperate crowd toward us. "Stay here," I commanded, my voice firm but betraying an undertone of worry. "I'll help her." No. Her voice cut through the clamor, fierce and unwavering. "You can't leave me. Not now." Something about the strength in her words ignited a fire within me, though it was snuffed out quickly by the sinister force lurking nearby. The man was still there watching, biding his time as shadows clung to him like a second skin. The battle between standing firm against fear and running away was waging fiercely within me. Then help me. Without waiting for a response, she turned her attention to the woman. What happened? Can you stand? The woman, her face streaked with dirt and tears, nodded weakly, her breath ragged. They came out of nowhere. I was just trying to get away. Her voice faltered, and I could see the grip of panic tightening around her mind. Listen, you're safe now, I assured her, kneeling to support her. Were not as the words left my lips, the air shifted dramatically. The sound of muffled footsteps crept towards USA predatory rhythm interrupting our fragile sanctuary. No. The man's voice sliced through the air, sharp and insistent. This is not your fight. Step aside. There was a fleeting moment where I thought about pushing back against him, challenging the reign of fear and asserting our right to exist here. But before I could respond, she looked at me. In her eyes, I saw not only fear but an undeniable spirit, a call to action that ignited the strength I thought I lost. Together, she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear above the noise. We can't allow him to turn this into something worse. We need to protect her. I nodded, every part of me engaged in this new resolve, as if her bravery stitched the frayed edges of hope back together. Help me get her to safety, I said, my voice more certain now. We slowly lifted the woman to her feet, and I felt her trembling beneath our combined support. Turn around. Go back. The man shouted once more, exasperation edging his tone. Not this time, I breathed, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. Together. And we moved towards the saloon, weaving through the scattering crowd like a thread through fabric, this unbreakable bond pulling us closer. In the dim light, I could see the expressions of the patrons, faces torn between curiosity and fear. The feeling of protection and urgency fueled my determination, weaving a shield around the three of us. With each step, crystal clarity washed over me. His was our moment to stand. As we gained distance, the chaos behind us continued. The menacing man's voice called after us, but something in his tone faltered. Maybe it was the way the crowd began to rally around us, recognizing our fight as a shared one, a collective stand against the darkness encroaching upon our lives. Just then, amidst the turmoil, a soft warmth swept through the air, like a whisper of courage. An elderly man stepped forward from the throng of bystanders, his face etched with experience, and in a raspy voice, he brought life to his words, "You're not alone. Not here. We'll stand with you." There was an unexplainable magic in the sincerity of his declaration, tangible hope igniting within the gathering crowd. Their eyes, filled with resolve, shone like lanterns in the encroaching night. It was a reminder that though shadows loomed, they could be pushed back with light. "Thank you," she breathed, her hand tightening around mine, and in that moment I felt bolstered by this outpouring of courage and unity. It awakened something deep within me that I had thought long extinguished, a belief that, no matter how dark the past, we had the power to forge our own path. But as we turned back to face the saloon entrance, determined to find refuge within, the sudden rumble of thunder echoed across the skies. My heart sank, and the storm that existed both inside and out converged into a single, dreadful moment. From the western horizon, dark clouds gathered, swirling ominously above as if heralding our undoing, and Thena's scream split through the atmosphere, a voice that rose above all else, crystallizing my worst fears. "Henry! He's here!" It was the frantic cry of the man outside, a collision of dread that twisted my heart. A voice I had hoped never to hear again. "Run!" I implored, pulling her along with the wounded woman as the claustrophobic space of the saloon felt smaller, the threat closing in. "Not while she needs us." Her resolve was unyielding, but as we stumbled into the saloon's dim lobby, I felt a chilling tendril of uncertainty brush against my skin. "That we have to get out of here," I insisted, yet something deeper pulled at me, an inexplicable connection to the woman in need of shelter. But just as our footsteps echoed against the wooden floor, an explosive crash reverberated behind us. The front door burst open, the cold night air flooding in with a force that tossed the wooden frames like twigs. "Stay back," the man warned, his shadow stretching into the room like a malignant spirit. I turned, heart racing, knowing that for every flicker of hope we kindled, a greater danger lurked in the shadows. The realization sank deep. These was just the beginning. As I caught her gaze, a flicker of understanding passed between us, obscure yet undeniable. Our journey to escape this spiral of darkness had only begun, and with it, the heart-wrenching weight of our intertwined pasts would be laid bare under the cold starlight. Would we withstand the storm? Or would it consume us whole?